Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Astyachari Satarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Astyachari Satarine Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda. So today is the appearance day of Narottama Das Thakur. We'll start with one of his famous songs, which is familiar to many of you. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Koro More Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu. How do I know they can see it? From Daya Koro More Toma Vina Ke Doyalu Jagata Samsare Toma Vina Ke Doyalu Jagata Samsare Patita Pavam Tava Avatara Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatara Mosama Patita Prabhu Napae Beara Mosama Napai Veya Mahaprabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Mahaprabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Bala Kanakara Ami Boruki Kripa Bala Kanakara Ami Boruki about this technical hitch. Okay. Doya koro sita pati, hard way to go side. Doya koro sita pati, hard way to go side. Tava kripa bale pai, Caitanya Nitai. Tava kripa bale pai, Caitanya Nitai. Paha swarupana, rupa raghunatha. Tatayuga Sijivaha Prabhu Lokanatha. Tatayuga Sijivaha Prabhu Lokanatha. Daya Koro Siyacharya Prabhu Srinivasa. Ramachandra Sangamani Narottama Dasa. Ramachandra Sangamani Narottama Dasa. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Narottama Das Thakur ki jai. The translation of this song of Narottama Das Thakur. My dear Lord Chaitanya, please be merciful to me, because who can be more merciful than your Lordship within these three worlds? My dear Lord Nityananda, you are always joyful in spiritual bliss. Since you always appear very happy, I have come to you because I am most unhappy. If you kindly put your glance over me, then I may also become happy. My dear Advaita Prabhu, husband of Sita, you are so kind. Please be merciful to me. If you are kind to me, naturally Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda will also be kind to me. O Sri Damodar, personal secretary of Lord Chaitanya. O 6 Goswamis, Rup Goswami, Sanat Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt, Gopal Bhatt, Jeev Goswami, and Raghunath Das Goswami. O Lokanath Goswami, My beloved spiritual master, Narottam Das also prays for your mercy. Your incarnation is just to reclaim the conditioned fallen souls. I assure you, you will not find a greater fallen soul than me. Therefore my claim is first. O Srinivasacharya, successor to the 6 Goswamis, please be merciful to me. Narottam Das always desires the company of Ramchandra Chakravarti. Jai Thakur's appearance day ki jai. So I hope that everyone can see the screen. Today we'll be trying to discuss a little something about Narottam Das Thakur. I must admit that I'm not the most qualified, least qualified person in many ways to speak on this divine subject matter. There's so many wonderful devotees today in Vrindavan, Indradumna Maharaj, who has absolute attachment to Narottam Das Thakur, was speaking, and you may or may not know Her Grace Sitala Devi, who has produced a beautiful book on Narottam Das Thakur's life and teachings. She's a very senior devotee of Srila Prabhupada, the wife of Hari Sori Prabhu. Very worthwhile reading, and there are many other literatures related to Narottam Das Thakur. So with your permission, we'll try to speak a few words today. I'll just stop the share screen for a minute, and there we are. And you are there, and it's welcome to all of you, whoever's with us today. It's a very bright, sunny morning. It's a Purnima day here in France, and it's a great day to remember one of the greatest of the followers of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Narottam Das Thakur. So it's interesting to note the two main or the most famous compilations of Narottam are called Prarthana and Sri Prema Bhakti Chandrika. In the Sri Prema Bhakti Chandrika, it's very interesting that Narottam starts his presentation with prayers that we often recite. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshoram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shvayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Shvapadantikam. We won't recite the rest because they're not there in his we call Mangalacharna, his auspicious introduction to the book. But those two prayers are Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Now I'm going to quickly share screen again, I think. Let's see what we can do here. I'm learning how to do this. I'm going to start with this prayer. This is Srila, they'll be able to see it, right? Everyone can see it. Srila Narottam Prabho Rashtakam. This is 8 prayers to Srila Narottam Das Thakur by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And we're going to recite the first one of these prayers, not all 8, it'll take a long time, but it's wonderful. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who appeared a few hundred years later, maybe 100 or 200, I don't know. But he very much accepted Srila Narottam Das Thakur and his writings, and we'll hear about that in a minute. Krishna namamita varshi bhaktya Chandra pabadvashto tamo baraya Gauranga deva anucharaya Tasmai namo namaha Srila Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He is indeed a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev. From his lotus mouth showers the nectar of Sri Krishna's name, which emanates the wonderful effulgence that destroys all ignorance. What a beautiful prayer. And all the prayers describe his wonderful, glorious qualities which he shared with the world. And the amazing gift which he's given to us all. I'll just see what the next slide is because I can't see it. Okay, we'll go back. And we'll go back on closed screen. Yes, he's very famous. In fact, Indra Dunamai's lecture, I didn't hear it, but the title is From Iron to Gold, how he transformed countless living entities in very degraded conditions to swan-like devotees. Sometimes we hear from crow to swan. He transformed the hearts of countless living entities. For that we hear sometimes he got some flack or criticism from certain sources. But it's very extraordinary. I'm going to read you something now. Okay. There are songs. Prabhupada. This is Prabhupada's purport to the first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 10, verse 20. And I just take a little bit out of the purport. Prabhupada writes, there are songs. What Prabhupada is talking about, authorized Vedic mantras. And he says, there are songs of Thakur Narottama Das, one of the acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, composed in simple Bengali language. But Thakur Vishwanath Chakravarti, another very learned acharya of the same Sampradaya, has approved the songs by Thakur Narottama Das to be good as the Vedic mantras. Quite a strong statement. And because they are expressing the same philosophy, the same goal, everything, as the Vedic mantras. And Prabhupada also writes, I'll read a little something here. This is from the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 5, text 25. Again, in terms of mantras or prayers. These songs we sing are prayers. And Narottama Das wrote many, many songs, and you may be aware of that. And we sing many of them regularly. We'll sing a few more later on. And these songs, Prabhupada says here, we generally sing two songs. One is Sri Krishna Caitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Panchatattva. This is bona fide. It is also mentioned, Caitanya Charitamrita is accepted by the acharyas. The other, of course, is the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But these two songs are sufficient to please the Lord, although we cannot see him. I missed something out there, didn't I? What did I miss out? Is this funny? Okay, no, sorry, I didn't miss it. We may also sing the songs of Narottama Das Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Lochan Das Thakur. But these two songs, Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Hare Krishna, are sufficient. But Prabhupada says here we may also sing these songs. And Srila Prabhupada used to sing these songs very, very regularly. He loved singing the songs of Narottama Das. These songs were written in very simple Bengali language. The Goswamis compiled many literatures, but they were mostly in Sanskrit. And for the general populace, Sanskrit is not a language they're familiar with. And especially Narottama, of course, he was preaching mainly in Bengal. And most of the associates of Lord Chaitanya were Bengali. And so he was preaching in Bengali. And he wrote these songs, very simple songs, which even to this day, many people, you'll find them singing, the villagers, singing these songs. And in these songs, the entire mission of Lord Chaitanya is revealed. It was very, very wonderful. I'm just going to, it's not on the slide, so I'm just going to read something now at the beginning of this beautiful book. This is Prarthana. I don't know if you can see it. This is a picture of Narottama Das also, painting. And this book is prayers, songs and prayers of loving devotion. right at the very beginning. Prabhupada, in one of his lectures in 1974 in Mayapur, he said, so read Narottam Das Thakur's Prarthana, Bhakti Vinod's Prarthana. They are very, very valuable for advancement of spiritual understanding, especially Narottam Das Thakur's Prarthana. So by reading them, by understanding them, we can understand Krishna very easily. Otherwise, it is very, very difficult to understand Krishna. It's quite something. Sometimes we say, well, only read Prabhupada's books, but that's not what Prabhupada said. He said they're sufficient in themselves, but he didn't say that we shouldn't read anything else. These other literatures are also extremely important. And when the time comes, we start with Prabhupada's books and we take advice from our Siksha gurus for you to read other books. But first we should read Prabhupada's books, no doubt. But the writings of Narottam Das and all the other acharyas are absolutely amazing. And this Prarthanas, basically it's a collection of songs and prayers, glorification, etc. Let's see. Yes. One time, it's in the introduction, we read in this book, it says, Srila Gaura Das Babaji was once asked how to develop love of God, to which he replied, it costs only 5 paisa. Now, it costs more than that now. It might cost 120 rupees. But then it was only 5 paisa. So his answer was, the inquirer did not know the meaning of Babaji Maharaj's statement. Srila Gaura Das Babaji repeated himself and then told the inquirer to go to the market with 5 annas and purchase 2 books, Srila Narottam Das Thakur Prarthana, this one, and, because they wouldn't like this then, Prema Bhakti Chandrika, the other one. And maybe they cost now 300 rupees to get the 2. More, I think that this one costs about 400 rupees, I think. And the other one about 120, so maybe 500 rupees now. You have to be quite rich now. But then it was only 5 annas. An anna is not even a pice, it's next to nothing. It's literally next to nothing. It's not even 1/10 of a cent. So anyway, he said, you want how to develop love of God? You buy these 2 books now. He instructed that by reading and meditating on the contents of these 2 books daily, one will develop love of God. Whew, what a powerful benediction. Huh? The songs of Narottam Das Thakur are accepted by great Vaishnava authorities like Vishwanath Chakravarti as the Vedic evidence. They're proof of the Vedic truths. Huh? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur accepted the songs of Narottam to be as good as the Vedas. And he divides his book up into 3 sections, basically. One is complete submission, giving everything to the Lord. Huh? The other one is an intense yearning for the personal service of the Lord. And the other one is an expression of humility and, basically a complete helplessness and hopelessness, hankering. They're also in a sense, but the second part is hankering for love of God, hankering to be with Krishna. And the other section is to help, the mood, the various, let's say, repentance, the feeling of helplessness, the feeling of, lack of qualification, etc. So these are expressed regularly throughout his songs. And we're going to sing a few of his songs today, hopefully, and discuss a little bit about his life. So I'm going to go back on share screen now. And this, this is a very famous verse. Now, I don't know which song it's from yet. I'll find out. But this is very famous. It's known. It's since the day I joined, practically, we would recite this quote from Narottam. You might like to take a note of it or take a picture of it or something, record it. It's a very important statement which Prabhupada quotes, I don't know how many times, but dozens, if not hundreds of times, Prabhupada quotes this. Charya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Payeche Keva. Without serving a bona fide spiritual master, an ideal Vaishnava, who can be delivered from the clutches of Maya? And other times Prabhupada said, translates, or let's say, explains it, and he says, no one can get free of this illusion without the mercy or without taking shelter of a pure Vaishnava. It's the key, it's the most important feature in transformation. It's taking shelter of the pure devotee. So Narottama Das very much emphasized this important point. Well, we're going to sing a song which you probably never even heard of. I've never sung it before. Let's see what happens. This is a song called Ki. It's not actually called Ki Rupe Paiba. There's no title given to it in the Prarthana. It's one of the series of songs, but it's a beautiful song because we're going to start now with the importance or the absolute, not just the necessity of a spiritual master, but the mere fact that without the spiritual master, there's no question of spiritual life. We'll try to sing it. Can you? I hope you can see it. If you won't, you've probably never heard it before. Ki rupe paiva seva mui duracha. Ki rupe paiva seva mui duracha. Shri Guru Vaishnaverati Nahaile Ama. Shri Guru Vaishnaverati Nahaile Ama. Asheshamaya Tema Magana Asheshamate Man Maganahare Ala Vaishnavete Veshamatra Ratinajam Nila Vaishnavete Veshamatra Ratinajam Nila Ishaye Buliya Ainodiba Nishi Ishaye Buliya Ainodiba Nishi Dale Pansari Te Pire Maya Se Pishate Pansari Te Pire Maya Machi Ihare Koriya Chadanana Jaya Ihare Koriya Jaya Chadanana Jaya Sadhu Kripa Dina Nahika Upaya Sadhu Kripa Nahika Upaya Adoshada Rashi Prabhu Patito Dara Shadarashi Prabhu Patito Dara Ebara Narottama Karanista Ebara Narottama Karanista Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. And what an amazing meaning this song has. Unless you're Bengali, you will have not understood what this is all about much. So let us hear the meaning of this beautiful song. Since I have no attachment to my spiritual master and the Vaishnavas, and I am very sinful, how will I be able to serve you? I have no attachment to my spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. My mind is absorbed in countless illusory activities, and it has no tinge of affection for the Vaishnavas. What he's basically saying, as long as we're still absorbed in countless illusory activity, material things, or speculative things, it has no tinge of affection for the Vaishnavas, no real affection, just relative affection. And that's a fact. In many cases we judge people according to how it affects us. And when we're still conditioned, I'm afraid that also is conditioned in a sense that it's judged according to our false ego or our conditioned nature, and not necessarily from the point of the absolute truth. It's like Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, when the spiritual master sometimes chastises or corrects the disciple gets upset and goes away. But when the wife chastises, or maybe the husband not so much, maybe, but when the wife chastises the man, then he accepts it because he's attached. We have to become more attached to the Vaishnavas, more attached to the mercy coming through them. The witch Maya has returned with a rope to tie my neck. I have become blinded by material sense enjoyment. Without the mercy of the devotees, no one can conquer and give up Maya. It's the same we heard just now. O Vaishnav, the deliverer of the fallen, and who does not find fault with others, please protect me this one time, says Narottama Das. What a beautiful song. I picked this out months and months ago when I was having some feelings of certain kinds, and this seemed to be so appropriate. So I thought we'd sing it today as the early part of this presentation. And let's see what's next. Okay, so now what we're going to do, try to do, mercy of Narottama Das and Srila Prabhupada, we'll try to speak a little bit about the life of Narottama Das. This picture here is a picture of the river Padma. The Padma is one of the main, let's say, branches of the river Ganga, which flows now through, it sometimes flows through India. It's right on the border. Basically, at this point, the Indian Bangladesh border is the river Padma itself, practically. I don't know which side we're looking from, but one side is Bangladesh and one side is India. Which way? In fact, sometimes on one side there's a bit of India and a bit of Bangladesh, and the other side there's a bit of Bangladesh and a bit of India. It's kind of, probably the river has changed its course, but the border is not. So it's very interesting. I looked on a map, Google Maps yesterday, to see exactly. A place called Prem Tali in the exact location representing a particular pastime. Keturi, which is now on the Bangladesh border, Bangladesh side rather of the border. And this is amazing. I mean, I've never been there. Maybe one day we'll be blessed with the opportunity to hopefully transform by going to this spot. But we're going to go back a little bit. Perhaps we'll put one more picture on the screen. No, we won't. We'll keep it on the page. And we're going to try to start, let's see where we start. Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu Sankirtan movement. Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu was on his way to Vrindavan. And he was also on his way to, of course, meet with Rupa and Sanatana. But on that particular journey, which came first, I don't know, but he came to the river Padma, along with Nityananda and many other devotees were there. And Lord Caitanya suddenly started going into a state of what appeared to be complete ecstatic madness, more than practically than anyone's ever been seen before. And he started crying out. he'd been indicating for a few days that something special, personality would be appearing. Then he started crying out, Narottam, 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 Narottam. Nobody really knew what was happening, was he? Narottam, maybe could also be an address to the Lord. And Nityananda was convinced that very soon a very great personality was going to appear. So the Lord informed Narottam that at this spot, that in the near future, a very great personality would appear, in whom the Lord himself would invest his entire prema, especially his kirtan prema, in this personality. And he told Narottam Das that you're the one, you'll act like his guru, and you have to bring him to the very spot. Lord Chaitanya said, Lord Chaitanya then immersed himself. He said that he would deposit his entire prema, his entire bliss. Well, I'll go back to the other screen actually. His entire bliss. That didn't work. I'm going to go out here. Yeah. His Krishna prema. He would, because Nityananda would say how I would do that. And Lord said, I will deposit my prema in the river Padma at this point of time. And it's your job to bring Narottama Das to this river. And he will actually, then he will be infused with Krishna prema. So at that time, the river Padma in personified form appeared and said, how, well, Lord Chaitanya immersed himself in the river and the whole river became like over-flooded in ecstasy. And how will I recognize Narottama Das when he comes here? And Lord Chaitanya said, when he bathes in your river, you will also feel the same ecstasy. You will overflow like this in ecstasy. So then Lord Chaitanya, they left that place and they went on their journey to Vrindavan. So of course, in due course of time, many years passed, and it was no exact time is given exactly when Narottama departed from the world, but it said it's something time around about the time of the time Lord Chaitanya departed from the world, Narottama appeared. So that's about, on our Western calendar, around about 1534. But other descriptions say maybe a little bit before, maybe a bit after. But it's around about that time when Narottama appeared in Kaituri. And when he was born, he had all the symptoms of what's known as a Mahapurush. That means a liberated soul, a great personality. His arms were very long, down to his knees. He had beautiful lotus-like eyes. Everything about him, marks on his neck, all indicated the appearance of a great soul. Everything about his astrology, everything was just immaculate. And as a child, he was born in the family of a king, Krishnananda, who was a king in those days means somebody who's like jurisdiction over an area. It's not like we may think of a king as like sitting on a big throne with, King of England or something. Not quite like that. He's a king of an area, small area maybe. He's like the leader of that area for sure. A very kingly situation. And they were very, very rich. So he was born into a very rich family. And he was the only son of King Krishnananda. So that he was very, naturally the king was very affectionate, like a pet almost. And he was also extremely attractive. Although his complexion was said to be darkish color, he was nonetheless very beautiful features. So he was also very extraordinary. When he was a baby, usually when a baby is 6 months old, we do what's called Anaprasana Ceremony. It's a ceremony where the child, takes its first grains, usually after about 6 months, or there, give or take a month or two. So they were performing the Anaprasana ceremony for Narottama, and the child just looked away in disdain. Didn't want to even look at it, not to speak of eat it. He just kept turning his head away from the grains that they were offering him, whatever they were. And they were, what's going on here? The child's not only is he not taking it, he's not even looking at it. No, they couldn't get the child to take the grains. What's going on? He wasn't a vegan, by the way. Then after some time, they didn't know what was the meaning. They didn't know. One wonderful Vaishnav, came to the home, and the Vaishnav had brought Mahaprasadam from the temple somewhere, or he had Mahaprasadam. And when Narottam saw the Mahaprasadam, he just grabbed the Mahaprasadam and just devoured it. I thought, what is this? He wouldn't take the Anaprasana at all. And now he's eating these grains. And why? Because the Anaprasana grains had not been offered. Explain that this, because this is prasadam. This is why the Chad is taking it. He wouldn't take anything unless it was offered to the Lord first. And he taught this even in a few months of his life. So he grew up and he was what's known as Shrutidar. Shrutidar means one who can remember everything just like that. We're the opposite. We forget everything as soon as we hear it almost. But he was Shrutidar. He could remember just by looking at something. He could photogenic, we say in English, photogenic memory. Practically speaking, same thing. Shrutidar. He could remember everything. He studied. He loved to study under those days, 400 or 500 years ago. Little different to now. Study wasn't sitting in a class and being brainwashed with all this speculative philosophy of the modern era. Study meant studying the Vedas. It's studying from qualified persons about the Vedic knowledge, about different whatever was necessary for sustenance of life, etc. But mainly studying the Vedas, studying Shastra, studying Nyaya, studying grammar, Sanskrit, and what have you. Quite different to today. So he was a brilliant student. But he was showing, even as a child, he was showing tremendous signs of detachment from the material world. His parents were a little worried. He was the only son. As a king, kind of a king, naturally, it's very important that your son carries on. He becomes the heir to all the family riches or the property or the kingdom like that. So they were a little bit worried about his detached mood. He was very detached. And they were thinking to get him married, of course. He had no interest in this business of getting married. So anyway, when he became Lord Chaitanya, had already departed and he wound up his pastimes and was no longer manifested. But when Narottam became because he'd heard about Lord Chaitanya, he'd heard about him from other Vaishnavas in Keturi, and he'd heard about all the Vaishnavas of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Narottam had heard about Nityananda and Advaita and all of them. And he was always hankering to get their association, like anything. And the time came when it was time for Nityananda now to act as his guru. So as predicted by Lord Chaitanya, or ordered by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So one night when Narottam reached the teenage years, Nityananda appeared to him as he was resting at night and told him that tomorrow morning, early in the morning, he should go down to the Padma River and immerse himself in the river of Padma. So when Narottam, dozing or vision, whatever you call it, early in the morning when he arose, he immediately prepared himself because he recognized Nityananda and accepted his words as we say in English, gospel truth. So he went down to the river of Padma and he entered into the Padma. And the Padma immediately felt ecstasy and started to overflow, practically speaking. And she deposited her prema in the heart of Lord Chaitanya's prema, in the heart of Lord Narottam Das. And at that time it says that Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself appeared and embraced Narottam Das Thakur and told him he should go to Vrindavan and take initiation from Lokanath Goswami. At that moment, Narottam was experiencing unending prema and bliss. His body transformed and changed from a darkish color to a golden color, beautiful golden color. And when he came out of the river, he was just mad, intoxicated in love of God, rolling on the ground, roaring Krishna's names, dancing. And of course, nobody could recognize him. Who is this golden personality? He was transformed. He was like Gauranga Mahaprabhu. He was there a long time. The parents, where is Narottam? Where has he gone? He's not in his bed. He's not here. They were in so much anxiety. Has he run away? And they were sending their guards everywhere to search for him. Eventually, they saw this personality who kind of looked like Narottama, but was now golden. And then they realized, this is Narottama. What's happened to him? So they brought him back home, and Narottama was just like, wasn't the same person. They couldn't understand what's happened to our Naro. He's gone mad. He's like a madman. They called all kind of people to remove. They thought he was ghostly haunted, possessed by a spirit, gone crazy, something like that. So they were bringing in various people, ghostbusters and people to remove spirits and what have you. And they were recommending he should eat, a dead fox and all sorts of things. Now this is crazy. This is not. None of this is going to make any difference. And he was just completely, totally absorbed, absolutely ecstatically absorbed in love for Lord Caitanya. Mahaprabhu, the prince, didn't know what to do. He had no interest in marriage whatsoever. But he still stayed some more time at home. But basically, most of his time was just in the palace, the king's palace, in the temple room, just worshipping, just crying in front of the deities. He was literally crying, Krishna, Krishna, I want. He was just praying, just calling out. He wanted to associate with the Vaishnavas. He wanted to go find Krishna. He was just mad, intoxicated. The prince didn't know what to do. And he became quite well known, actually, his madness in love of God. Even the local Muslim leader of the whole region, I don't remember his name, but he heard about Narottama. He wanted to see him. And this was a bit of a problem for the parents because he called, I want to see who is this Narottama I'm hearing about. So he called him to his court. And the parents had no choice. They had to send their son. They sent him to the court, of course, with various guards and so on. But whilst Narottama was in the court of this Muslim, he took an opportunity. He took a golden opportunity. He found a way to escape. And he left, somehow or other, he left the palace and he escaped into the jungle, intending to go to Vrindavan. And he went through the day and night walking towards Vrindavan with, literally speaking, no nourishment, nothing. Just walking. Most people thought that maybe he's escaped, he's gone to Mayapur, Navadvip, because there, all whoever's left of Lord Chaitanya's associates, they're residing in the Navadvip district. Surely he's gone there. So they sent the guards there looking for him. Nowhere could he be found. Narottama decided that, no, if I go to Navadvip, I'll definitely get caught. So he went off. No one else knew about his intention of going to Vrindavan. So he was heading through the jungles towards Vrindavan. And of course, he was not getting anything to eat. Hardly. He was exhausted. And pretty much the son of a king. So he was, you could say in one sense, he was used to being a very opulent situation. And anyway, one night he was getting so exhausted, he fell asleep. No, before that happened, he was getting so exhausted. And then suddenly, as he was just about to rest, one Brahmin came in front of him. A beautiful featured Brahmin appeared. Said he, I brought this for you. He brought a pot of milk. Can you take this milk, please? And then he disappeared. Narottama was astonished. Suddenly, out of nowhere, this milk disappeared. So the Brahmin said, you take this milk, you will feel ecstatic. So he took this milk, and he was overwhelmed, and he fell asleep. And in the sleep, Rupa Goswami, because he'd heard a lot about Rupa, one of the reasons he was going to Vrindavan, he was told that there he should meet Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, who would give him shelter. So Rupa Goswami appeared and said, actually, this Brahmin was Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself. He has brought you this milk. And if you take this milk, you will be completely ecstatic and you will gain all the strength, energy you need. So he was overwhelmed. Actually, Mahaprabhu had appeared before him with this milk. So at that point, suddenly guards appeared. They found him in some place, wherever it was. They appeared on that spot. I was thinking that now maybe he's going to be taken back home. Oh no. But somehow or another, by the mercy of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, was able to convince those guards, this is my life and soul. I've sold myself. Just like a woman who's sold himself to a man. She cannot withdraw her love for anything else. There's nothing you can do. And somehow or another, he convinced the guards to leave and go back. So he made his way onwards towards Vrindavan. And when he got to the precincts of Vrindavan, he heard from some devotees, some residents of Vrindavan, that Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, maybe not Raghunath, but many of the Goswamis had left this world. They'd already left. And things didn't take a long time to move in those days. So he was very distraught. Then the Goswamis appeared before him and said, don't dishearten, you go on to Vrindavan and take shelter of Jiva Goswami. So he proceeded on to Vrindavan, and there, when he entered into the Radha Govinda temple, the temple of Rupa Goswami, previously Rupa Goswami's temple, there he was overwhelmed in ecstasy, and news came that because Jiva Goswami had also, by Lord Chaitanya's arrangement, given instructions to wait for Narottama and give him guidance. And Lokanath had also Lord had also appeared before him and told him, you must initiate Narottama when he comes, one great personality. So they were already waiting for him. So he appeared, and Jiva Goswami came there and understand this is Narottama. So then he took shelter under the guidance of Jiva Goswami and was a student, very prime student of Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami never took any Diksha disciple, only Siksha. So he was one of his primary Siksha disciples. And Narottama became very attracted in the circle of Vaishnavas at that time was Lokanath Goswami. Lokanath Goswami had been sent to Vrindavan by Lord Chaitanya along with Bhagavad Goswami before the 6 Goswamis, actually. They were associates of Lord Chaitanya in Navadvip. And they were sent to Vrindavan, particularly to uncover the holy places of Lord Krishna's pastimes, which they did to some extent in Vrindavan, because they were eternal associates of the Lord also. So Narottama was becoming very attracted to Lokanath. But before we go on to the next pastime, we are going to try to sing another song. And let's see, what will this be? This is called Vaishnave Gyapti, prayer to the Vaishnava, also from Prarthana. So please sing along with us. Another beautiful song. So we've had the Guru and now the Vaishnava. Could have done it the other way around. We've done it this way. Ebaro Karuna Koro Vaishnava Gosai, Ebaro Karuna Koro Vaishnava Gosai, Patita Pavam Toma Pineke Onai, Patita Panatoma Pineke Onai, Jaharani Kateke Papu Dure Jai, Jaharani Kateke Papa Dure Jai, Emona Soyala Prabhu Keba Kotapai, Emona Doyala Prabhu Kotapai, Gangara Parashoile Paschate Pava, Gangara Pachate Pava Darshane Pavitra Kara Eto Maragam Darshane Pavitra Kara Eto Maragam Haristane Aparani Hare Hari Nam Hare Sane Aparani Hare Hari Nam Tomastani Aparade Nai Paritram Tomare to ye kare Govinda Vishram Tomare to ye kara Govinda Vishram Govinda Kohin Namora Vaishnava Para Prati Jane Kori Asham Charanera Duri Prati Jane Kori Asham Charanera Duri Narottama Korodaya Apanara Gori Narottama Korodaya Apanara Gori Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Narottama Das Thakur Ki Jai. And here's a translation of this beautiful song. O Vaishnava Goswami, please be merciful to me now. There is no one except you who can purify the fallen souls. Can anyone find such a merciful personality whose mere audience sends all sins far away? One becomes purified after bathing in the waters of the sacred Ganges many times, but just the sight of you purifies the fallen souls. This is your great power. It's like Narottama, just by seeing him, people will become transformed. It's like that when you see somebody who's actually spiritual. The Shakti, call it what we will, but their love, the purity of their heart just pervades the atmosphere. It's like when we see Srila Prabhupada just coming to his room, like coming into the presence of the transcendental sun, just becoming enlightened, purified. The holy name delivers one who has offended Lord Hari, but deliverance is impossible if one offends you. Your heart is always the resting place of Lord Govinda. And Lord Govinda says, the Vaishnavas are in my heart. I desire to have the dust of your holy feet in every birth I may take. Please consider Narottama yours and be kind upon him. We'd like to discuss more, but we have to move on. This is a picture of Narottama later in his life, a painting, clearly a painting, when he was in Vrindavan. So now Narottama Das has arrived in Vrindavan, and we'll just go back now to the screen. He's in Vrindavan, and he's attracted to Lokanath Goswami. Of course, it was known. Jiva Goswami also was aware that he was to take shelter of Lokanath Goswami. So he sent him to Lokanath Goswami. Also, actually at this time he hadn't really been giving him tutorship. He sent him to Lokanath. He was naturally attracted. He went to Lokanath Goswami and began to serve under Lokanath Goswami, assisting him in various ways. And Lokanath Goswami was naturally very attracted to Narottam. They were like completely compatible with each other, eternal associates of the spiritual realm in the same, you could say, arena of service. And Lokanath and Narottam Das rather asked Lokanath Goswami if he would please accept him as his disciple. Lokanath Goswami had made a vow that he would never accept anyone as a disciple throughout his whole life. But Lord Chaitanya had given this order, he had to accept at least one disciple, Narottam. Narottam tried, and then Lokanath tried to put it off. He said, according to Shastra, to take initiation, one has to at least for 1 year menially serve the spiritual master. So then for the next year, Narottam menially served his spiritual master in whatever way he was required. For a whole year, he served his guru. Then again, he approached his spiritual master, but still Lokanath Goswami was very hesitant. He didn't want to break his vow not to give. The Lord sometimes we make vows, but sometimes the Lord breaks them for a higher purpose. So eventually, Lokanath was still hesitant. So Narottam was thinking what to do. He was so praying, crying and crying. His life would be helpless if he couldn't take initiation or shelter from Lokanath Goswami. So he would go in the night and clean up the stool area where Lokanath would sometimes go to pass stool. He would do all sorts of things, anything to try to evoke the mercy of Lokanath. He would just do anything. And he was crying and crying. And eventually one night, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in Lokanath's dream, or let's say vision before him, saying, I've told you, you must give up this vow. You have to initiate Narottam. It's so important. He'll give up his life. There's no meaning to life if you don't initiate him. So he gave, next morning, Lokanath surrendered and accepted it. So then on an auspicious moment, with all the Vaishnavas' blessings, etc., he gave initiation to Narottama Das Thakura. And actually, I can't remember exactly. My memory is not so good. But he also gave him his understanding of his eternal service, which is an assistant in the spiritual world to Champakalata. Champakalata is one of the Astasaktis, and her business particularly is preparing all kinds of very special milk preparations. Sometimes it's said that Narottam's eternal, in the spiritual realm, he's the last Manjari. Sometimes it's said he's Champaka Manjari, the assistant of Champakalata. But whatever it is, that's his eternal service in the spiritual world, assisting. It sounds so simple. In this world, we're so complicated. Huh? And if you're asked all day long just to boil milk, you think, what is this? Oh, I've got to do something useful. What are you just doing? Boiling milk all day. This is in the spiritual world. That may be your eternal service, just to boil milk. Oh, I don't want to go there. I'd rather stay here. No, go on internet, Facebook, this thing, that thing. So many complications causing so much disturbance to our hearts and keeping us in this world. We have no idea what this means, just to assist Champakalata in boiling milk. One day, Lokanath Goswami, he was so absorbed in this service to the divine couple that one night in his rest or his dream or vision, whatever, he was assisting Champakalata in preparing these wonderful preparations of milk for the pleasure of the divine couple. And suddenly the milk, and this is all in his vision, the milk pot boiled over, and he quickly went there, and with his bare hands, he picked the milk pot up and burned his hands to pieces, literally. They were totally burned, but he didn't care. He just had to save that milk. Save the milk. It's boiling over. And he didn't have hand gloves like we have now, or gas stove. Everything was cooked on wood. And even his meditation, everything was as real as, more real than real, you know. And so when he came out of this pastime, look, his hands were burnt. And then he said, now's the time. He was ready. So he sent him then to Jiva Goswami for full-time training in whatever necessary training. Jiva Goswami was the head of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas at that time. The other Goswamis had departed, so he was the leader. Because now we're moving on in time, quite a few years after Mahaprabhu left, manifested his pastimes. So Jiva Goswami then inquired, what happened to your hands? They're all burned. And then he explained the story, and Jiva Goswami was very happy and inspired. This is indeed your eternal service in the spiritual realm, to assist Champakalata in this way. So he then, in due course of time, of course, Srinivasacharya came along, and Shamananda Pandit came along as students of Jiva Goswami, also Ramchandra Kaviraj. Ramchandra Kaviraj, although a contemporary of Narottama, accepted him like a guru also in due course of time. He went to Bengal, even to Caitanya, and assisted Narottama there in the future. So after many years of study under Jiva Goswami, the time came, and Jiva Goswami wanted to now send these teachings of the Goswamis to Bengal, and Orissa particularly, for the Vaishnavas there. So we know the original traveling Sankirtan party, headed by Narottama Das, Srinivas, and Shamananda, headed off towards Bengal, and on the way in Birhambir, King Birhambir hijacked the party basically in the night and stole all of their literature. Srinivasacharya stayed behind to try to recover them, but Narottama and Shamananda proceeded on towards Bengal, and they went to Caitanya, the place of Narottama's birth. He'd been away so long. In his absence, his parents, of course, had passed away, and his cousin named Santosh had inherited the entire kingdom, because his father was named Purushottam, and he was also very opulent. And so King Krishnananda and Purushottam had handed over all their wealth to Santosh, who was very, very rich. So they arrived there, and all the residents of Caitanya were so overwhelmed. Here is our Narottama's return. Of course, he was grown up and very different, you could say, in a sense, but it was a very glorious occasion when he returned to Caitanya. And now along with Shamananda, they then began preaching in Caitanya, and all the residents of Caitanya, including Santosh, took shelter now of Narottama. Their young boy who'd left many years before was now their spiritual master. And practically all the residents of Caitanya took shelter of him as their guru. And he remained there in Caitanya for some. Shamananda went on to Orissa in due course of time, and like that. So time came, and Narottama also wanted to visit other places. He went to Navadvip, he went to Puri, and different places. He didn't return to Vrindavan, but he visited other places, and there he met Janava and various associates of whoever was still residing there in Navadvip and Puri, and became overwhelmed by their association. And in due course of time, I can't remember exactly, but the decision was maybe Janava appeared in his vision or something. I can't remember, I'll speculate. But the decision was made that they would hold a great festival there in Caitanya for the Vaishnavas. Janava particularly wanted to establish the pure teachings of Lord Caitanya. After maybe, I don't know how many years, maybe 30, 40, 50, I don't know, years after Mahaprabhu had left, there were many branches of Vaishnavism, Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Some of them were becoming devious. Gaur Nagaris, the Bauls, different types of offshoots were there, deviations from the original pure teachings of Chaitanya. Already they were there. Didn't take long. So Janava wanted to reconcile this and bring everyone together. and make things very, very clear. Very, very clear. There is a whole story behind it. I've forgotten it. But Narottama was also informed that they should establish this by installing deities. Up to that point, the Goswamis never mentioned Vishnu Priya in their writings. So to establish Vishnu Priya as the eternal consort of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, etc., deities of Vishnu Priya and Lord Gauranga, to be installed, the deities of Radha Krishna and so on in Keturi. So the arrangements began, and Janava, of course, was to be the guest of honor at this great festival, and Narottama Das started to make arrangements, and Srinivas was also involved. He was also there at that time, and Santosh, now a disciple of Narottama, and he had many other disciples there. Ganga Narayan and Ramchandra Kaviraj was there, and so many other disciples were there. They started to make enormous arrangements. Santosh was incredibly rich, so he was able to make huge arrangements, big halls for the programs and the accommodation of all the Vaishnavas, arranging for all the food, and then the invites were sent out all over Orissa and Bengal for this great assembly. He chose Gaur Punim Day. This was the first Gaur Punim celebration. Narottama Das chose Gaur Punim. So all the invitations were sent out well in advance, not on the last moment. Obviously, they had to walk, so it would take a long time, or maybe some bullock cart or something. And Santosh made arrangements with thousands of boats on the river Padma so they could cross the river to Keturi on the other side. And as the Vaishnavas were proceeding towards Keturi, the Vaishnavas were telling everyone on the way where they were going, and millions and thousands, and maybe millions, who knows. So many local people also joined them on their march towards Keturi, and their pilgrimage towards Keturi. So eventually, so many people arrived, and Santosh arranged fantastic accommodation for everyone and wonderful prasadam for everyone, boats to cross the river. Everything was arranged nicely for every single person who came. And then the festival began, and Janava was overseeing it, all the arrangements, etc., etc. Even the prasadam, she would sometimes be cooking the prasadam, serving the prasadam, and speaking, and others would speak, and Narottama would be leading the kirtans, Padavali kirtan, this famous style of kirtan, in which she incorporated dramas and various speeches and kirtans, and the mood, completely capturing the mood of the moment, and every movement of his body and his very life itself was just a manifestation of the loving emotions experienced in relationship with Radha and Krishna or in Italy. So absorbed in this mood, everybody became ecstatic. Everyone was overwhelmed in ecstasy. They had grand installations. Janava oversaw all the installations. Her intention was to unify the Vaishnavas. Gaur Purnima was established to unify the Vaishnavas, or whatever their deviations may be, but to bring about unity amongst the Vaishnavas. So all these things were going on, and Narottama Das was leading kirtans, and he couldn't stop through the night. He couldn't stop. He was just like a puppet, just like that, just instrumental. That's what kirtan means. It's not that we're doing something to impress somebody. It's actually we're absorbed in the heart of the Lord, just expressing his heartbeat, practically speaking. So Narottama Das is the personification of this kirtan ras, this kirtan prema, this love of pure kirtan. And then during the middle of the kirtan, lo and behold, Caitanya Mahaprabhu appeared with Nityananda and all of his associates, and they were dancing in the middle of the kirtan like mad. As Narottama was singing and dancing, the whole scene was transformed. It was like gone back into the time of Caitanya Mahaprabhu's personal presence. Everything was like incredible transformation. Through this ecstatic kirtans and the festival, which was held for many, many days. And many of the Vaishnavas stayed on. Fabulous prasadam. Janava would cook herself. Incredible. what to say. This is Gopurnim festival. This is what Prabhupada wanted. The devotees come together and kirtan. I remember in 1976 when I was in Mayapur. I wasn't in the room. We heard all about it. I was just a little nobody and still am. But one day there were so many, differences of opinion amongst leaders about certain issues, particularly regarding the grihastas and the ladies and the families and so on. They get them out. So, and Prabhupada was, he wasn't happy with it all. And one day he called the GBC in his room and he said, who was leading this kirtan? Because there was a 24-hour kirtan going on. The temple, Prabhupada's room was just above the temple, and still is, you could say. And he said, who's leading the kirtan? It was Radha Damodar at that time, leading this ecstatic kirtan downstairs. And Prabhupada said, this is our business. Harinam Sankirtan. Not all these meetings, but Harinam Sankirtan. This is our business. This is the solution. Otherwise, we make resolutions, no solutions, and only dissolutions. So this is the real business, Nam Sankirtan. And this was Narottama Das's unlimited contribution, but specifically we could say the showering the world with Prem Kirtan, Prem Sankirtan, showering the world. And to this very day, his kirtans are still going on, spreading it. It's just maybe our purity is not there, but the purity of Narottama Das is there in these kirtans, in these songs, and in his every movement, everything about him. Personification. Sometimes they said he's a personification of Nityananda's ecstasy. But Nityananda was the manifestation of Lord Chaitanya's ecstasy. So he's just an expansion of that ecstasy of Nityananda Prabhu. And it may have been Nityananda who actually told him about the festival. I don't know. I can't remember. Simple as that. So things are going on, and everyone eventually, of course, departs back to their homes, so to speak. And Narottama stays there in Keturi, basically speaking. He didn't really leave Keturi, but he sent his disciples. Many of his disciples went on. Let's see what the next thing is on the share screen. Just give me a second. Let's have a look. Narottama Das Thakur Ki Jai. This is Narottama Samadhi. Let me just see what the next one is. This is all at the last minute. Okay, I'll go back. We won't come to that yet. No problem. So whilst he was in Keturi, he sent his disciples, followers. They were going up to different places, especially Manipur, Tripura, different states in the eastern side of India. And because that time, of course, Bangladesh was part of India. It wasn't like separate countries. It was all connected. And those areas now known as Manipur and Tripura, and especially Ganga Narayan, Ramchandra Kaviraj, they converted pretty much the whole state of Manipur into Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Even to this day, there are many, many strong followers of Lord Chaitanya in Manipur, though it's becoming more and more materialistic, atheistic. But still, there are many thousands, hundreds of thousands of great Vaishnavas there in Manipur, and Tripura especially also. And in other parts of Assam and other parts of eastern India, they were preaching very strongly. Ganga Narayan was from a very high-class Brahmin family, but most of Narottama's followers were from not so high-class families. And there was great criticism of Narottama Das from local pandits and caste Goswamis and caste Brahmins, etc., criticizing who is this man, because Narottama himself was born in a Kayastha family, which is regarded as a Shudra family, although they're kings. They're very clever and they're very materially expert in many ways, but from the social point of view, they're also Shudra. So who's this Shudra named Narottama, they would say, who's initiating even Brahmins? This is completely unbona fide. This has to stop. This must be stopped, they would say. So they were campaigning against him to try to pull him down. This was going on. And they went to the local Raj, the local king. It was at that time, I believe he was actually a Hindu at that time. And they went to the local king and they made their presentation to him that, there's this low-class man, this Shudra, breaking all the Vedic principles, and he's initiating Brahmins, posing himself as a guru, This is completely unauthorized. It has to be stopped. You have to put this to an end. So the king then sent a message to Narottama. Is this correct? He wrote back, and Narottama wrote back with all kinds of statements, spiritual statements, religious, Vedic statements, etc., justifying his position. The king was pretty much convinced that Narottama was authorized. But the Pandits, everything, no, it's not. They insisted. You see this type of move quite often happens in past times. And the king said, okay. And so then he gathered up a whole large group of very expert Brahmins and Pandits, including one named Rupa Narayana, who was known as the most proficient of all the Brahmins at that time in Shastric knowledge, etc. And they marched off towards Keturi with the intention of, at least the Brahmins, of bringing Narottama down, removing him and showing him up, whatever you wish to call it. And so on their way there, they were very confident. They came to the precincts, the outskirts of Keturi. Now it became known to the followers of Narottama that this was going on. So especially Ganga Narayan and Ramchandra, they made a plan. And they disguised themselves as simple village people. And they set up little shops on the outskirts of Keturi. One was selling pan, one was selling pots and different things, little clay pots. So they were right on the outskirts where the pathway would come in, where these Brahmins from the king were coming in with the king and so on, to Keturi. And as the Brahmins approached, they called them, come and buy some, this and that, different things. So the Brahmins and their associates went over and they were a bit surprised because these two shopkeepers were speaking in Sanskrit. Goodness me, this is unusual. And they were a little surprised. So then these Brahmins started talking to them, and then they started to talk, not only talk in Sanskrit, but talk very philosophically. And they started to have a debate with these two fellows, Ramchandra and Ganga Narayan, in disguise. And all the Brahmins, these two, the potter and the pan man, they defeated the Brahmins in debate. And then, what's this going on here? They revealed themselves as disciples. Who are you guys who speak Sanskrit? We're disciples of Narottama. So the king was saying, what is this? Even these Brahmins are being defeated by these two disciples. And then he sent Rupa Narayana over there to debate with them, and they defeated Rupa Narayana also. And then the king said, what is this? If two disciples of Narottama can defeat all of you, what about Narottama himself? So all the Brahmins were humiliated. They had to admit their defeat. The king also took shelter of Narottama. In this way, Krishna consciousness was spreading everywhere, and he delivered anybody just by his presence, his love for Krishna, maddened in pure love, and no other thought other than love for Krishna. As time went on, still, there were many different areas, persons who would criticize him in many ways. One time he was, I think it was Murshidabad, was the place of Narayan. Narottama was deciding it's time to leave the world. And he went into deep samadhi. And at this point, he was no sign of life, no communication was there. He looked as if he was dead. Practically. And many of these local Brahmins and critics were then saying, just see now, just see your so-called guru. He's just a Shudra. Now he's just dying like an ordinary man. They were going on like this, trying to find fault. So the followers of Narottama, this was unbearable. So they prayed, oh, Gurudev, please come back and save us from this terrible fate of these people. And Narottama, seeing the pain that his followers were experiencing, suddenly came back to consciousness, external consciousness. And his body, suddenly on his body, was already golden. Suddenly on his body, a golden Brahmin thread appeared, because he never wore Brahmin thread. A golden Brahmin thread appeared on his body. And he started to gain full consciousness, as if nothing had happened. All these Brahmins were completely stunned, and they also surrendered and became devotees. That's one story. There's another story of him asking to be placed on top of the fire and be burned. Same principle was there. criticized, and they were just about to light the fire. They said, please, Gurudev, please come back. So he did. And again, the same thing. He started to speak and glorify Lord Chaitanya, and he embraced everybody and transformed them all into Vaishnavas. But eventually, he decided it was time to leave this world, and he went to the banks of the Padma River one day with his followers, and he entered into the Padma to take bath. And he asked his followers, please bathe me. So they, with their own hands, they were taking the water from the Padma and pouring it over Narottama like this, around him. And Narottama, his whole body, as they poured the water transformed into milk and flowed. Not the water, his body transformed into milk and flowed into the river Padma. And all the devotees were crying. They didn't know what to do. He'd ordered them to do this. They couldn't stop. They continued to pour out the water, and Narottama's body was just melting as if into milk and flowing into the river Padma. It was like he was returning back into the river Padma, returning back into the embrace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this way, his whole body just disappeared into milk. And Ganga Narayan took a pot and gathered up a pot full of that milk. And with that pot, he went to his hometown. And there, he established what's now known as a Dood Mandir. I'll just put my glasses on, I can't see what I'm doing. The Dood Mandir. And this is, let's see, here. The Samadhi of Narottama Das Thakura. I assume, I don't know for sure, but I assume this is it. The Dood Mandir of Narottama Das. Milk Mandir. Put that milk into the Samadhi, and that is now worshipped as the Samadhi of Narottama Das, because there was no body, it was just milk. Incredible story of Narottama Das Thakura. Okay, so we're going to now finish with a bhajan. Gauranga Bolite Habe, one of the most famous. I'm singing simple ones. There are so many which are more complicated, but these are all in simple tune and simple songs. Gauranga Bolite Habe Ulaka Sharira. Listen that tune. Gauranga Bolite Habe Pulaka Sharira Hari Hari Bolite Nai Yani Babe Gauranga Bolite Habe Pulaka Sharira Hari Hari Bolite Nai Yane Babe. When will that opportune moment come to me? When there will be shivering of the body as soon as I chant Lord Gauranga's name, and after the shivering while chanting Hare Krishna, when will there be tears pouring down my eyes? Arakabe nitai chande koronaibe samsara vasana mo kabe tujabe arakabe nitai chande koronaibe samsara vasana mo kabe tujabe. And when will Lord Nityananda bestow his causeless mercy upon me, so that my desire for material enjoyment will become very insignificant? When will that time come? Goranga. Oh yeah. Vishaya Chariya Kabe Kurave Ma Kabe Hamae Ramu Sri Vrindavan Vishaya Chariya Kabe Kurave Ma Kabe Hama He Rabo Sri Vrindavana. When my mind is completely purified, being freed from material anxieties and desires, then I shall be able to understand Vrindavan and the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, and then my spiritual life will be successful. Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haiveya Puti Kabeham Abujabose Chugalapiti Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haiveya Puti Kabehama Bhujavate Tugalapiriti. When shall I be very much eager to study the books left by the six Goswamis? One has to learn of the conjugal loving affairs of Radha and Krishna through the teachings of these six Goswamis. Rupa Raghunatha Pade Rahomara Asha Pratana Kuroye Sada Narottama Dasa Rupa Raghunatha Pade Rahomara Asha Pratana Kuroye Sada Narottama Dasa. Narottama Dasa always longs to remain at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Raghunath Das Goswamis. Gauranga Balite Habe Pulakasharira Hari Hari Balite Nane Babe Nira Gauranga Balite Habe Pulakasharira Hari Hari Balite Nayane Babe Nira Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Narottama Das Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. Hari Bol. He was also Narottama Das Thakur. He never married, actually. He remained a celibate, brahmachari, whatever you call it, his whole life. But he had countless followers, grihastas mostly, and we simply pray for his mercy that we can become a little tiny instrument in the mission of spreading the holy name and trying to help others to embrace devotional service. Hare Krishna. So if there are any questions, we'll take them now. Otherwise, so can we further substantiate the importance of singing devotional songs by Vaishnava acharyas like Narottama? And what effects do they have on us when we sing them regularly? Well, thank you very much for that question, comment. Well, we know that Srila Prabhupada has said they're as good as the Vedic hymns. There's also, we understand Bhaktivinoda Thakur has expressed that these songs are you could say the moods, the emotions which are required. They express those various emotions. They're expansions also, he said, of the holy name, the Mahamantra. They're expansions to teach us how to purely chant the holy name. If we absorb ourselves in the meaning of these particular kirtans, bhajans, if we immerse ourselves in the meaning of these bhajans and the emotions therein, and they're developed actually. You can sing any bhajan any time, no doubt, but there's actually an order. We find in the writing, especially of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there's a progressive order in many of his writings, taking us through various stages from neophyte to more deeper and advanced stages of devotion, especially like in Kalyana Kalpataru. One goes through these, they're organized in such a way, basically taking us through the various stages of Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Nartana Vritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Shakti, Bhava, and Prem, practically taking us through the stages of devotion step by step. And they help to evoke the necessary attitude at various stages, or to remind us of, our position when we sing songs like Gopinath, Gopinath, I don't know, I haven't memorized that one, but it just is it's just like incredible to read the translations, and those who speak Bengali, of course it's the language, it means as they sing, they're experiencing the meaning, but to apply the meanings of these songs in our lives, try to realize it. These pure devotees are not singing out of love of God only, they are, but they're singing for our benefit. It's not just about philosophy and becoming puffed up because I know so many verses and I've got followers and I'm a this and I'm a that. And I'm born in this thing and that thing. No, but to remove all of these illusions that we're in, to bring us down to reality, that we're completely helpless, dependent souls. So they express this in their songs over and over again, especially Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And in that beautiful song we sang about Narottama Das, about he's entrapped in this material world. He has no traction, no devotion for his spiritual master, etc., the Vaishnavas, etc. And this is really our position. They're trying to get us to realize our position through their songs. Because sometimes we keep chanting Hare Krishna, we get just puffed up. We just remain in our materialistic illusion of thinking mechanical chanting of the holy name is enough. I don't need to worry about anything else. It's not enough. It's good, but it's not enough. And so the pure devotees, their pure songs, and Prabhupada said very clearly, we should only sing the songs of the pure Vaishnavas. Those who are in the proper, we can sing the songs of pure Vaishnavas and others. We do sometimes, Madhuram, 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 so on. There's songs of other Vaishnavas too, but we don't generally sing them except on special occasions, so there's no harm in singing, because we want to cultivate the mood of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, this mood of the Prem Sankirtan. So the bhajans written by those followers of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the pure followers, will help us to enter or develop the right mood, the right attitude, to chant the holy name with the right intention and the right attitude. Otherwise, it can be very mechanical sometimes, and we wonder why there's no change of heart. Because we're not realizing that it's not like it can be automatic if we're completely offenseless, but usually we're not completely offenseless. So this is to help us to realize that we're offenders and to deal with the offenses, and not just to turn a blind eye to it always and just say, oh, don't worry, just chant Hare Krishna. Yes, that's true. But as long as we're offending, we can Bahujama Kariyari Shravana Kirtana, we can chant as long as we like, but we're still chanting with an offensive mentality. So the acharyas are trying to help us to realize that, wake up. Not to realize this is where I'm at. Actually I have no devotion. I'm just, full of material desires, etc. So then we pray to them, please help me. There's the Vaishnavas are there to help us. They're our acharyas. Narottama is our guru. He's our Siksha Guru. Bhaktivinoda is our Siksha Guru. Goswamis are our Siksha Gurus. These are our real Siksha Gurus. We have to hear from them. We have to absorb ourselves in hearing attentively from them by singing these songs attentively. It's very, what can you say, Prabhupada would sing these bhajans sometimes. On his own. On his own. It's not like, we've got to get an audience, otherwise why should I sing? What's the point of singing? No, it's not. We're here to change our hearts. We're here to please the Lord. So they're expressing what it means to chant the holy name purely. Anyway, gateways to pure Nam, Shuddha Nam. Very important. Very important. Thank you. How can we increase our attachment to Guru? Yes. A good question. Thank you for that. I'll have to ask. I'd ask the same question myself because it's a reality. How can we increase it? By serving the other devotees, serving the Vaishnavas, serving the other Vaishnavas, selfless service. Well, how do we increase our attachment to Him? Applying His instructions in our lives more and more. Not expecting anything in return. Apply those instructions in a selfless way in our life and associate with devotees who have more faith, who are more advanced in devotional life. And pray. Pray. Pray that we can become instruments of the will of our spiritual master. By the mercy of Krishna, we receive spiritual masters. His mercy are the instructions He's giving, so we have to embrace those instructions. Then we may have some realizations. Don't get about your favorite. Please share about your favorite bhajans of Narottama Das Thakur. Thank you for that question. Very hard one to answer. They're all favorites. Everyone is favorite. I don't know them all, so I can't answer. It changes too in different stages of everyone, different stages of life. Certain stages, different bhajans are more, let's say, they resonate in the heart more. It's very hard to answer that one. And I'd have to probably go through the book. I don't have it with me. I have Prarthana, but there's so many songs in Prarthana. Shri Guru Charana Padma, by the way, is a song of Narottama Das. That's from Prema Bhakti Chandrika. It's one of the songs we sing from the other book, Prema Bhakti Chandrika. That's cool. I'm opening the book now and see where we are. Oh, this isn't possible to say the favorites. They're all favorites. I don't know most of them. I've never sung them or heard them sung. There's so many of them. So you might like to answer. We know what Prabhupada's favorite one is. I'm just trying to find it now. For some reason, it hasn't in the same way. Maybe I'm not anywhere near that mark yet. But Prabhupada's said, or it is said of Srila Prabhupada. Maybe Prabhupada said it or not. I do not know. But it's said of Srila Prabhupada's favorite. I'm trying to find it here. Hari Hari Bifale Gonainu. That song. Prabhupada loves that song. I would say of all the songs of Narottama Das, sing it. I don't think I've got it on my PowerPoint. I've got it, but I don't think I've got it here. I'll tell you my favorite is Sri Rupa Manjari Pada. That's my favorite. I don't know if I've got it on PowerPoint, easily available. And Prabhupada was, here's Prabhupada's, it's Hari, this is song 4, Prabhupada. And Dainya, in the section of humility, of submission, the mood of submission. Submission. Hari Hari Vifale Janama Ganahinu Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Navajiha Janya Shunya Bishakahinu. Many tunes of it. That was Prabhupada's. It's apparently Prabhupada's favorite. Let me just see if I can find Rupa Manjari. Just give me a second. I don't know if I put it on the screen. Yeah, here it is. Let's see if I can share it. I will. We can sing it. Okay. Take it off the screen. And I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? Can you see it? I have to say yes or no. I don't know if I'm sharing it or not. How will I find that out? My assistant is not with me. So I'm hopeful that you can see it.
Cannot see anything.
Okay, I'll have to try to find my way back. I'm a bit bewildered here. Back to okay, maybe if I take this off the screen. Gosh, how to do that? Nothing's happening right here. I don't know what to do now. The screen is not giving me a chance to go back. What do you see on the screen?
Just see you, Maharaj.
Oh, you can still see me, but I'm trying to find the screen with me on it. I can't find me on the screen anymore. I don't find that page anymore. I've got no idea where it is. My brain is fused, and I can't find it. I can't find this page with me on at all. I don't know what to say about that. Now I've found it, but now the problem is, okay, share screen. Let's see if I can find it. Firefox. No, that's the right one to press. Cancel. I think I better not cancel it. Yeah, give me a few seconds. I'm sure eventually I'll work this out. Stop here. Okay. Now, share screen. Just going to find which one it is. Finder. Maybe this one. Narottama Manjari. Can you see? What do you see now?
We just see the folder called Narottama Das Thakur. But I think you need to open the document first, Maharaj, and then share screen to the PowerPoint program.
Let me think how I can open this screen.
So I think you might have to stop the share screen and then open the file.
Maybe this one. Yeah, here it is. I've got it. Can you see anything now?
Yeah. Say Mora Rasanidhi. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, well, as you've asked this question, I'm going to finish on this, unless there's anything else. As you say, which is my favorite? I think this, over the years, I would say this is my favorite. fact, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj asked when just the evening before he left his body, he asked, I don't know if it was Sridhar Maharaj sing this, but one of his two confidential disciples who were with him at that time to sing this song. The other one he asked him to sing Sikshastakam. So this is one of his last desires, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, was to hear this bhajan. Shri Rupa Manjari Pada Se Mora Sampada Shri Rupa Manjari Pada Se Mora Sampada Se Ma Bhajana Pujana Sema Bhajana Pujana Sema Pranadana Semora Abaran Semora Pranadana Semora Abaran Semo Jivanera Jiva Sema Jivanera Jiva. The lotus feet of Sri Rupa Manjari are my real wealth. They are the object of my devotional service and worship. They are the treasure of my heart, and they are my ornaments and the life of my life. Semor rasanedi, semor vanchasidi, semor rasanedi, semor vanchasidi, semor vedera taram. Semo Vedera Dharamo Se Brata Se Tapa Semo Mantra Japa Se Brata Se Tapa Semo Mantra Japa Semo Dharma Karama Semo Dharma Karama. For me, they are the reservoirs of all rasa and the conclusion of the religion of the Vedas. They are the fulfillment of all of my desires and the goal of all my vows, my austerities, my religious activities, and the chanting of my mantra. Anukula habe vedi, se pade hoi besidi. Anukula habe vedi, se pade hoi besidi. Irakibo eduvi nayane. Irakibo eduvi nayane. Se rupa madhuri rashi prana kuvalaya shashi. Se Rupa Madhuri Rashi Prana Kuvalaya Shashi Prapulita Habe Nishidine Prapulita Habe Nishidine. By the power of our lotus feet, my activities will become favorable to devotion. I will achieve spiritual perfection, and with these two eyes I shall be able to actually see, both day and night, the flood of exquisite beauty of Sri Rupa Manjari's divine lotus feet will shine like the brilliant full moon upon the lotus of my heart, soothing my afflicted soul. I was just thinking there, another important way that we develop our attachment to our spiritual master is to read his books. When I say spiritual master, I mean Srila Prabhupada. Taking shelter of his books. Read Prabhupada's books attentively, regularly. And then all doubts will be cleared up, and the intelligence will be sharpened. And we'll be able to focus on our goal. Tua darshana ahi, gale jagalo dehi. Tua darshana ahi, gale jagalo dehi. Chirodina tapita jivan. Chirodina tapita jivan. Harpa korodaya deho more padachaya. Narottama loilo sharam. Aharupa korodaya deho more padachaya. Narottama loilo sharana. Narottama loilo sharana. O Rupa Manjari, the venom of the snake of separation from you has enfeebled my soul. Now my life is ever afflicted and distressed. Alas, please have mercy and give me the shade of your lotus feet. Narottam Das has taken refuge. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Bolo, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai, Srila Narottama Das Thakur ki Jai. Another favorite is the Nitai Pada Kamala, where we're not going to sing, but we sang that the other day on Nityananda's appearance day. We'll sing it again tomorrow. We're having another session tomorrow, which Rasikananda will send out details of soon. I think it's at 3 o'clock French time, if I'm not mistaken, in the afternoon, Sunday. And that will be particularly about Lord Nityananda. We did the other, maybe some of you joined us the other day on Nitai's Nityananda appearance day. But tomorrow we'll be carrying on. We didn't get halfway through the presentation today. So we'll summarize what we did the other day and carry on where we left off tomorrow for Nityananda's appearance day, which was, of course, 2 days ago. But we'll be again discussing it tomorrow. The Slovakian Yatra will be hosting it, and everyone will be welcome to join. I think it's 3 o'clock French time tomorrow afternoon, which will be difficult for many of you. It's been middle of your night, but what to do? Anyway, some of you it will be easy if you're in Europe or in America or maybe India even. But anyway, if you really want to, I mean, you probably won't be able to join us. You're working next day, but you're welcome. Or maybe you can see it on YouTube if you can't join us or something. So thank you all very, very much. And been really fortunate today to hear something about Narottama Das, despite obviously I made many mistakes and forgot many things, but hopefully a little something there has given us a little insight to and a little opportunity to associate with Narottama Das Thakur. And we can pray to Narottama Das that we may also follow in his footsteps and hopefully develop a little taste for chanting the holy name and sharing it with others, because it's another way that we can develop our love or our appreciation, if not love really, but at least appreciation and gratefulness to our spiritual master. We try to preach Krishna consciousness to others and being the most pleasing thing to Lord Nityananda, Caitanya, Mahaprabhu, that we try to preach Krishna consciousness to others. That's what they come into this world. They don't come into this world to go shopping. They don't come into this world for sightseeing. The only reason Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, he has his internal reasons, which are essentially the highest. But externally, we could say the only reason he's come is to preach the Sankirtan movement. So if we don't absorb ourselves in the Sankirtan movement, how will we ever get into the internal aspect? You can't jump into the internal without being completely immersed in the external reason. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared along with his associates in this world for 2 reasons: to experience Krishna prema through the performance of Sankirtan, Prem Sankirtan. Thus, along with his associates, he distributed the holy name to even the lowest of mankind. In this way, it says, Kaviraj Goswami says, Lord Chaitanya wove a wreath of the holy name and Krishna prema, with which he garlanded the entire material world. So this is the way to get into the association of the pure devotee. It's not just an implementation on our minds. It's not just a theoretical application. It's actually, following the mood of the spiritual master, living in his association. Automatically, by that association, the qualities of the pure devotee start to say, they don't wear off of him, they increase always, but they start to manifest in our own hearts. We say in English they wear off on us, but that's not exactly, but it infers that they go from him to us. It's not like that. They're awoken in our heart by association. Like a touchstone never loses its potency, it just transforms. As we started the program talking about iron into gold, the association of the pure devotee transforms that iron into gold. As Narottama's body was transformed into a golden form by the embrace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have to get that embrace. And that embrace, Lord Chaitanya embraces those who absorb themselves in Nam Sankirtan, chanting the holy names. Lord Chaitanya will embrace you. Shri Narottama Das Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Agora Premanandi. Yeah, so if you have the chance today, I may not be able to go out. I injured my knee. Normally we go on Harinam Sankirtan today, even with the curfew. We have a curfew. We can't go out between 6 at night and 6 in the morning. So we squeeze in a Harinam all afternoon in the local city. but I may not be able to go today. My knee it'll be all right. Just have to rest it. It happens from time to time. But if you have the chance, please do more kirtan today for Narottama Das on this Purnima auspicious day. If you have somebody you can give the Bhagavatam to, please give them or sell them a Bhagavatam today. It's a very auspicious day to distribute Bhagavatams, Srimad Bhagavatam, or read the Bhagavatam, chant the holy names. Simple. Process is simple, but because we're complicated, we're thinking of so many other things to do. And so, of course, we have to do other things as well. But sometimes we think of other things to do, which we don't really need to do. And so we're just so restless and so much attached to this material world and so self-centered. I want to enjoy. I don't want to be transformed. I want to be as I am. I just want to enjoy more. We're unfortunate souls. What to do? By the mercy of these great Vaishnavas, maybe we'll wake up one day. Haribo! Haribo! Anybody there? Haribo!
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you,
Fiji, Ireland, all over the place. In Europe, Slovakia, many different places all over the world. All glorious to all of you. And all glorious to Thakura, the holy names. May they resound in every town and village, wherever it is, in Malaysia, all over, everywhere. Mexico. Someone from Mexico. Russia, India. Hare Krishna. I don't know everybody's location. More or less, that's everyone. If I missed you out, forgive me.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, Premanande.
Haribol. Haribol.